prepared some questions for them, maybe like 400 level, yeah, bachelor level. So they will be answering the questions and then answering your questions. Hopefully, we'll all have a nice time. So, could you please introduce yourself, Mr. Hamid?
Uh, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Fadl Hamid. Currently, I'm the head of IT infrastructure at Al Baraka Islamic Bank. I have almost, you can say, 17 years of experience across multiple areas of IT. I've worked in multiple organizations. And basically, I'm here just, as you said, if there is to contribute and share my knowledge and experience with you.
Thank you, Hamid. Mr. Tom?
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Tom O'Reilly. I am the Chief Technology and Data Officer for Yusuf bin Ahmed Kanu Group. So Kanu is a 130-year-old family business based here in Bahrain, but we have operations across the Gulf, in Saudi and UAE, Oman, Qatar. And we operate in a lot of different business areas. We have shipping, logistics, oil and gas. Kanu Travel is a brand probably a lot of you are familiar with. So we have a fairly complex environment, and obviously security is a major concern of ours. Prior to joining Kanu, where I've been for about 2 years now, I worked for Dell for a number of years, working as a CTO, helping customers across Europe, Middle East, and Africa in digital transformation. And before that, I worked for the Maersk Group, which is the large shipping company in Europe and the Middle East. And we'll talk a little bit probably about Maersk in the future, because if you're aware of ransomware and you're aware of the viruses that have been around for some years, Maersk was hit really significantly a couple years ago. So talk about that.
Tom, I'm curious, how big is your infrastructure here in Bahrain?
In terms of
Your responsibility.
So we don't have a huge infrastructure. We have hundreds of servers, not thousands. They're spread across, so we have multiple data centers in Bahrain, in Saudi, and UAE.
Okay.
And we also leverage the cloud pretty well.
Very good. So my first question would be to both of you. Have you experienced or have you like noticed or observed an incident of ransomware response?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure. So thank goodness in Kanu we have not yet experienced it, although it's always top of mind. Yes. Yeah. It's a very large concern of mine leading the technology group. Ransomware is a very real risk. In previous roles, though, I have witnessed a ransomware attack where the company faced basically a very small company, but basically they lost their entire infrastructure. All their servers and all their PCs were encrypted. In that case, luckily, they were able to recover from backup. All the PCs need to be imaged and re-imaged, but the data survived. At least the critical data. Actually, not all of the data survived, but the critical data survived, and they were able to recover from that. But I did want to mention the incident at Maersk. So I think 3 or 4 years ago, so after I left, the Maersk Group was hit with the NotPetya virus, which was a massive incident that was covered by the press worldwide, and a really good case study of how to manage such a huge, because Maersk is 100,000 employees, with thousands and thousands of applications. And it was a really big impact. I mean, it impacted ports, it impacted shipping, it impacted on-land logistics. And actually, there's a really great article about it if you want to read up. It's almost reads like a movie written in the Wired magazine that really talks about what happened, basically talking from the IT manager's perspective. He's sitting in his office and he can see, maybe 50 PC screens from his desk, and you just see them go black, 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 like one at a time until his got hit. And the recovery from that was again, almost like a movie. All their domain controllers were encrypted. And they finally discovered in their entire infrastructure worldwide, there was one single domain controller somewhere in Africa that happened to be offline because there was a power outage at that site. And that was the only way that they actually were able to recover. So somebody had to fly from Copenhagen, where the headquarters is, to Africa, pick up the hard drives of the server, bring it back, and restore the domain so that they could begin the restoration process. So it's a great article. I highly recommend it.
Okay, thank you very much. Fadel?
Yeah, as you said, as per my experience, I've never been in any organization. I never faced any such attacks. However, I've been hearing, I mean, across the region, within the country, across the region, there are many attacks, and the way that they restored their system, they recovered the data. It took them a while because they have been missing some, as you can say, incident response plans or disaster recovery plans. They haven't been catering or well prepared for such incidents. So this is what I learned from it. For some organization, it took them almost 1 month or 2 months to recover. So basically, what I can say here is you need to be well prepared, even if it's not there. Just be prepared for it. Consider that it might come at any time.
Okay.
No one is safe.
Very good. Okay, so this is an unscripted question. It just came to my mind. I'll ask the audience. Do you think that being hit with the ransomware is a shame for the IT managers or the CISOs? What was his future career? Why?
It's not being ashamed more than being accountable and responsible. So when the ransomware hits or when a malware hits, somebody has to be accountable. And most of the time there is a gap somewhere that somebody didn't do his job properly, and they should be responsible for that action. So if we're going to be ashamed of anything, then it would be that. So the pursuit for perfection is a journey that never ends. And if it does happen, then that's probably the reason why.
Okay. Okay. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but I just want to say that I think, our role as IT leaders and anyone that's in the IT organization is to ensure that we are taking the necessary measures to do whatever possible to prevent that. Now, like you said, you can never prevent it 100%, but then we also have a responsibility, because I think ransomware and cyber in general is not an IT problem. It's a business problem. And so it's also our responsibility to ensure that we've highlighted the risks to the business to say, listen, we've done this, and this. We still know that there's some places where we have risks. Do you accept that? And if yes, then okay, then that's a business decision. If no, then okay, I need some more budget, or maybe a lot more budget, because some of the really corner cases can be very expensive to protect from. But that's our role. And then when you are hit, it's in most cases because those risks came true, which can happen. But then how you recover and how you manage that incident, that's where the IT manager really needs to take the lead.
Okay, sorry, I jumped with this question because it's part of the recovery after the fact. Yeah. So let's go to question number 2. Now, COBIT framework recognizes the user-initiated IT solutions as one of the challenges CIOs and CISOs face. How do you see this in your experience, and what do you recommend to address in this challenge? What I mean for the audience, user-managed IT solutions is sometimes, for example, your legal department will go and get a document management system, workflow, and they manage it themselves. So it's not IT infrastructure. They just subscribe to that. Sometimes access Microsoft databases are created by some departments to manage their day-to-day workflow, for example, their accounts or something in small companies. So how do you deal with this challenge? I have this as well.
See, from as a practice, before purchasing or buying any system and plugging it in within your environment, there should be it should be reviewed by IT, and a risk assessment should be performed for that system to address all. I mean, before putting the system within your environment, you need to know what are the risks associated with it. How can you control it? How you can harden the security of the system. So if any department or any business user would like to acquire any new system, it should go through IT, and there should be it should go within the framework or the controls of the IT department.
Okay.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think shadow IT, or I heard it's called gray IT now, has been a challenge for IT departments for years, right? And there's this delicate balance of enabling the business to do what they need to do, and at the same time making sure that you protect it in the way that IT needs it protected. I think, like you said, there needs to be really strong governance of the organization to ensure that when new technologies are introduced, it goes through the right process. I think also in reality, you're probably going to miss some things because people are just going to do things and not tell you. Having the right tools in place to detect that, quickly and be able to address that before, anything happens, that's also important.
Good. Now, while we were talking earlier, and we hear the term that's called playbook. It's frequently mentioned in information security gatherings and that. So can you please explain it to my audience? Many of them are students. They didn't hear about playbooks. They know about PlayStation books and whatever. So what's a playbook for security, guys? For a SOC, for example.
Basically, a playbook, it will contain all the, let's say, basically you can say the plan, or for example, the incident response plan or the disaster recovery plan. Basically, how you should look at it, you are addressing any foreseen risks that your environment will be exposed to, and you're putting an action plan to address all of those risks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the key things for a playbook when it comes to incident response and disaster recovery is ensuring everyone is clear on the roles and responsibilities. So who does what when there's an attack? Who does what technically, but also who does what in terms of communications with the business and with the management, and in terms of who, if it's a really serious incident and the press gets a hold of it, who deals with the press. These things all need to be part of a comprehensive playbook.
Yeah. I'd add maybe some scenarios of attacks, like attack on email server, attack on that, and then it will follow through to the actions and roles, responsibilities of each and everyone in the organization. Now, now talking about minimum requirements for any Father, you mentioned it has to go to IT to be approved. So what do you suggest to be a minimum requirement for an IT system? Let's say an in-house IT system. Shadow IT is a bit difficult to capture.
What I can say here is, if you're introducing any new system in the organization, basically you'll have to see who has developed it, from where it came, it's backed up by whom, and you should consider also the protection and the security layers that you're introducing here. Is it compatible, for example, with dual factor authentication? Is it compatible, for example, with any other system that you have it within your organization? Those factors should be considered as well. Yeah.
So, do you have some special requirements at your place?
I mean, there's simple things like it has to have antivirus. It has to have, up-to-date operating system, database. One of the things, we don't do a lot of in-house development, but if you're doing in-house development, you really also have to look into the software stack to ensure that, if you're using open source software or, different libraries, that those are continuously updated and maintained. One of the things that we know that happens is somebody will build a system and they'll put it into production, and then maybe that person leaves the organization and nobody knows how it works, nobody knows how to maintain it.
Yes.
And every day that you have that system running, vulnerabilities open up. And so ensuring that you have the right maintenance and the right support and the right, keeping things as up to date and hardened as possible is critical.
I see a challenge actually in sometimes, when vendors come up with a solution, for example, an HR system or a finance system, the management or the business owner would see a presentation. It's like flashy screens and everything. They would say, "We want this," and when you say this database is not supported, it's difficult to find people who are capable of running this database, and they insist on that. So, what do you recommend in doing so? And I've seen some horrible stories about that, and then it's just in my previous jobs. So it's just a matter of a few months, and then they would give up on this system. The IT would say, I cannot I cannot operate on that. So this is a normal day-to-day running. How about a ransomware attack or something?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge that exists. Someone wants to bring in some type of system like that. I think IT needs to be quite present and quite strong in that project to say, listen, no problem. This is the system you want. This is the thing that's going to enable you to do what you need to do. But that is going to have a cost, right? We're going to have to hire 3 people to manage this system that we don't have today because it has, like you said, different skills and different requirements. That has to be part of the project to say, in your business case, you have to justify not only the purchase and the implementation of this platform, but also the ongoing maintenance of it, because there is a cost. And
Yes, exactly.
that has to be a conversation back and forth, because if you can't do that, then IT or IT security wouldn't be able to sign off on it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, there's something probably in the mid between pre-ransomware and after ransomware. This is related to something you mentioned about asking for budgets, asking for something. In our culture here in Bahrain, if you say that something might happen, your colleagues and leaders will say, stop predicting bad things. Okay, let foul. In Bahrain, we say. Okay, I told them my job is to foul, to predict bad things. I'm head of risk management also. So, what do you see as an effective way to communicate to the top management the importance of cyber resilience?
How would I start? Is basically I will perform a risk assessment and try to highlight the impact, whether it's financial, reputational, legal impacts, if any incident that might occur or impact those systems. Then later on, I'll highlight also what is the investment required to mitigate or address those risks. In that case, they will. It will be obvious that the investment, you're comparing the investment against the impact, the loss if any system got compromised, which will be easier to justify it to the management.
Okay.
I think the thing that I found most effective is using real life scenarios, showing, I think it's been discussed in previous Majlis that there are companies in Bahrain in the region that have been hit. I mean, we can point to Saudi Aramco as a great example because it's such a public example. But Saudi Aramco, for most of us, is this huge giant, and we're not Saudi Aramco. But there's plenty of good examples, not good actually, but there's plenty of examples of organizations like ours, like yours, that have been hit in the region and globally, of course. And the results of that have led to massive impact reputationally, financially, operationally. Those to me have been the biggest, the things that have really made it real for the top management and the board to look to invest in cyber.
Yeah, okay. I've used this actually. This is one of the most useful tools I used with management, is giving relevant stories. Yeah, it's very basic. I'm not talking technical, because whenever you talk technical to the board and C-level, they will just shut down. Okay, and they will not understand. But telling stories of this company, this company, this company, and I got approvals from on the spot. Yeah, to stop projects, to move on with some projects. So it's when they tell a story, this company had this, and they're running the same business as us. This is actually, I think it's very effective. Now, I think we as security leaders are challenged with a two-sided sword. Dealing with emerging technologies like AI, machine learning, robotics, stuff like that. I think robotics is something you've dealt with, Tom, in your experience. And on the other side, we are dealing with legacy systems, like old core banking systems that have not been upgraded. And the bank cannot, they cannot stop their services and upgrade and that. So how can we include dealing with this challenge in our security strategies?
Sure. So, like I said, Kanu is a 130-year-old business. Luckily, most of our technology is not that old, but we have some legacy for sure. So this is a very relevant thing for us. While exactly like you said, at the same time, we're building out in the cloud, we're building data platforms with AI, we're doing robotic process automation. So this is exactly where we're sitting right now. It's a balance, right? So we're looking at how do we best secure our legacy systems, with more modern technologies, looking into things like zero trust and micro-segmentation of our networks to help to harden our legacy data centers, while at the same time, not losing focus on innovation and looking to the future. Hopefully within a few years, the legacy will shrink down to almost nothing and we can only focus on the new stuff, but it takes time. I mean, in any organization, you're going to have some level of legacy unless you're a big startup. And so it's definitely something you need to think about, and you need to have different approaches. You need to, have maybe like a Gartner used to call it like mode 1 and mode 2 IT. And I think that's quite relevant.
Can you elaborate more about this mode 1, mode 2 IT?
Yeah. So mode 1,
for me.
it's not something that Gartner uses so much anymore, but mode 1 is kind of the traditional IT organization that kind of moves slower, more methodical, more, more like in the waterfall approach to projects. And then mode 2 is the innovation, the agile approach to things, both when it comes to, DevOps, when it comes to both the infrastructure and the applications, leveraging cloud and doing things more in these modern technologies, AI and ML. And when it comes to cyber, that's how I'm thinking about it as well. As you have the mode 1 cyber, which has a certain approach, and the mode 2 one, which is just as important to secure, but you do it in a different way.
Right. Father, I think in the banking sector, in your experience, you faced some old legacy systems.
Of course. See, whenever we come across such incidents, what we need to do is, as per my experiences, you need eventually all the legacy systems will reach a dead end. You'll have to upgrade them. You'll have to cater them. You'll have to protect them. Eventually you reach to that dead end where we will have to upgrade, to replace it, or to find like a middle ground just to protect whatever, keep it in line with the new initiative, whatever you're going to introduce into your environment, and keep the legacy systems protected at the same time.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll tell a story about one system I've seen. Vulnerability assessments. You have a system, a machine that's going to detect whether this system is vulnerable or not. Some of the legacy systems I've seen, the vulnerability machine would say, hello, and the system will say, oh, here's my password. Yes. To allow him to change the password immediately. This is some legacy system. It's designed to be air-gapped. It's not connected to the internet, but doing testing, especially with legacy systems, for example, electricity or generators and that, these cannot handle vulnerability assessment, let alone penetration testing. So this also, you need to be very careful. You need to weigh business impact on that if you're doing this testing. Okay, so one other question is about recovering from ransomware. to be able to recover from an encryption ransomware, what has to happen?
Basically, if the organization is well prepared and they've been testing the backups regularly, they have advanced solutions to scan the backups, and they have, if we have like the data hosted in alternative locations, there will be a good chance to recover the data. But if you're talking about recovering the system, it might take it might be stretched because of that.
And Tom mentioned flying to get the backup tapes, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Worst case scenario, right? But yeah, I think our approach is, we're doing traditional backups because we have to, and because it's the fastest way to recover in case something happens. But we also keep now a third copy of a backup in Amazon as a backup to the backup, and then also having a disaster recovery capability. When I arrived in Ghana, we didn't have a capability for a full disaster recovery, so we've chosen to go with Amazon as well, and we're using VMware Cloud on Amazon, which has something called immutable copies of the backups. So, and they cannot be modified in case of a ransomware. The copy and the VMware Cloud won't be encrypted, so that gives us the ability to recover. But it's there's technologies, but there's also just thinking about like we were talking about before this started. The approach that a lot of ransomware have today is step one, get in. Step two, find the backups. Step three, encrypt those, and then mess with everything else. So you have to, think about that. And your recovery plans is not just, well, I'll just start from backup, because they've already thought about that and they've, killed that option for you. So you have to think about plan B, plan C, plan D. And that goes back to our conversation on playbooks, that has to include these things to ensure that, you know what to do first.
Yes.
What's fastest, what's easiest, and a little bit harder and longer, and then worst case scenario, what do you do?
Yeah. So I'll use the next question as a bridge to the coming question. Now we're talking about encryption, and you said you're putting a backup on the cloud. That should cost you a fortune, right? So now, do you do an exercise where you see what's being backed up actually?
Yeah, I mean, we do annual reviews of all of our backup policies, and one of the things that's important when it comes to anything to do with recovery is ensuring that there's an alignment between what IT is doing and what the business requires. So, does the business require, backups every hour that can be restored within a certain amount of time? Going to the RTO and RPO discussion. So we do a review of that to make sure that what we're doing, what we're paying for, aligns with what the requirements are from the business. That being said, I mean, we're just backing up to an S3 bucket in Amazon. So those are not the most expensive things. It's quite cheap.
Yeah, very good. I've seen one system actually, for 1 year, it was 32 terabytes. Then when you ask what's being backed up, you say, oh, these logs, what logs of what? So you need to question, dig deep, and then you'll find that you're paying for 32 terabytes of storage
that you don't
while
need.
you don't need
that.
that.
Sure. Absolutely.
What I can see here also, just to add, is we need to have some data classification. Should be classified. You should know what are the important data that should be backed up or be kept in your disaster recovery sites, whether it's on the cloud or you have an alternative physical site. Because eventually, all of this you're talking about, it costs money to the organization. So we need to make sure that our investment is going to the right direction and the right place.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the next question is about the new fashion of ransomware is data theft. How can you prepare yourself for that, and how will you go about it if you were asked to pay the ransom?
I think it's really relevant. So one of the things, we haven't really touched on it, but so data theft, if our data was to get stolen, let's say, Kanu is a private family business. We don't publish our financial data anywhere,
Okay.
and it's kept. It's confidential. If our financial data was to get leaked, then there could be repercussions in the market, and so it's a big risk. That's one of the driving forces, this reputational thing of why we need to protect so much. One of the other things to consider is your supply chain. So we, like I said, we haven't, thank God, gotten hit, but one of our partners got hit, and they basically said if they don't pay the ransom, they're going to publish all of their data onto the dark web. So we had to deal with that in terms of, okay, what data do you have of ours that may get exposed? Luckily, in that circumstance, they didn't have any data on Kanu on those servers that were hit. But it's something you need to think about, is not only in your internal cyber security, but who are your partners that you're working with, that you're disclosing confidential information to, and what's their cyber practices to ensure that that doesn't impact you.
Yeah, when we're talking about data theft, see, whenever the data is gone out, it's out. You cannot recover it. So the perfect solution in this case is just to be proactive and protect your data before it happens.
Yes.
So because once it's gone, it might not be only your data. You might be having customers. It's your customers' data as well. So it's not only my reputation. It's even my customers' reputation. Their private data is there.
Yes.
So it's to be honest, it's very, very crucial to protect your data and be proactive before and not being reactive in this case.
Yeah, exactly. Part of proactiveness, I think, is determining how much data do you need to keep with yourself. This in the banking sector, and that now we have personal data protection. It forces you actually to think about getting the data. Do you need this field actually? Do you need his mother's name, for example? Do you need that? Unless you actually need it by a regulation like FATF, like financial things that you need this information. Otherwise, then don't keep it. It's a burden on you. Once it comes on your server, it's your responsibility to protect it.
Correct. And plus, if the data theft happened, in these cases, like you might be having an insurance, financial compensation might be there, but the reputational part, it's very difficult to retain or recover when it is your data or customers' data. Yeah.
Exactly. So now let's go to our. I think we've covered that, but let's see your ideas about this last question. It's about the emergence of cloud environments. Many companies are running now on hybrid, like email server exchange. They will say, okay, we're trying cloud, and we'll stay in dual hybrid. It stays forever, for example, sometimes. So how do we deal with this challenge?
So
I think, Fadl, I've triggered something in your mind, huh?
See, when you're talking about cloud or a hybrid setup, see, when you're talking about the cloud, basically, if the data is in my data center, I'm the custodian of the data, and I'm responsible for it, and I am the one who can control it. But when it goes to the cloud, how can I ensure that it is protected there? I need to verify the security posture. Today, for example, they are protected. Their security posture is excellent. What will happen after 1 day, 2 days, let's say 1 month? Will they retain their security posture?
Yeah. Actually, when we're talking about email, for example, most of the vulnerabilities we get, the cert alerts and that, it's about a famous email server that has 0-day vulnerabilities and that. So these servers are exactly the same ones that are running on the cloud, and we're using them.
Correct. So whenever, basically, if you're talking about a SaaS model, or if you're talking about infrastructure as a service, basically, if it's there, if I'm taking it as a service, the security will be the other party's responsibility. But when you're talking about the infrastructure as a service, it will be just a container hosted there, but
Yep.
big responsibility will be on my shoulder. I need to make sure that my data, which is hosted on the cloud, is protected. Even if you're talking about, okay, after a while, I don't want to continue with hosting my data on the cloud. After retrieving my data, what will happen to my data that was hosted in the cloud? Am I protected legally? Even technically, is my data totally deleted from the cloud? Yes or no? I need to ensure that. Yeah.
Tom, you have something to add about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think my perspective is that hybrid cloud is the way things are going. We certainly are embracing cloud in Kanu. So we are fully on Microsoft Office 365, and using a platform like that all the large companies I've ever worked for are using the same platform. We have a level of trust with Microsoft that if they were to have an incident on Office 365, this would be a global catastrophe.
Yep.
So they obviously invest a lot more in protecting their email infrastructure than I could ever afford to invest on premise. The other thing is, though, on Amazon, where we're using infrastructure as a service, I think it's fairly new for us, and the approach that we've taken is our data centers and our office buildings have a fairly traditional security model. But as we moved into the cloud, we knew that we couldn't have the same approach to security in the cloud. So we need to embrace more modern tools, more modern technologies that really help us to secure. Because, yeah, you're right. It's out there. It's not in my office. But it's just as, obviously, it's just as critical to secure that environment, and it's still on in our responsibility to do so.
Yeah, even antivirus for the cloud is a challenge. I didn't imagine that it would be a challenge. We had to go back and forth to find a proper antivirus for a specific cloud environment. Yeah. We mentioned something in the previous Majlis about some of the threats of the cloud. The S3 buckets, the hard drives on the cloud. There's one toggle that can make it public or private. So the administrator has to be very careful what he chooses, and there's no like the financial systems, maker checker, and that somebody will check.
Exactly. Basically, you can host whatever you want on the cloud, but you need to make sure that it is secured. You shouldn't stop from going to the cloud. But the point here is we need to make sure, as people within the organizations responsible for this area, we need to make sure that our data is protected wherever it is, either on-prem or on the cloud.
Yeah, so I think it's a hint for NGN Training Center to do like cloud security certifications or something, just to teach the guys who are dealing with cloud. Because in some environments, when they adopt the cloud, they don't bring a cloud expert. It's the same system admin. Go on and run it. They say, "Oh, it's the same. It's the same. You'll see the same screens and everything, and go ahead and do it." We'll send you for one course, probably next year with the new budget. So a course like that would be very beneficial. Another piece of information I've read today from a Gartner research that most companies who are hit with ransomware, I'll let you guess, small businesses, small and medium, or large enterprises, Fortune 500, banks, something like that. What do you think? Small to medium? Yeah, you're right. About 85% of the ransomware is hitting small to medium because they don't have the facilities to secure their systems, to hire a CISO, to get information security certifications to prove that they're cyber resilience. And another number I read today, it's a bit scary. 35% of the top management are being let off after a ransomware attack. So this is like a big thing, but we need to be prepared for that so that it doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's a scary number to tell top management. But like I said, this cyber issues, cybersecurity is not an IT
We're all
problem.
together in it.
It's
Yes.
a business risk and a business issue that needs to be from the top level down.
So I've come up to the last. I've finished my questions. You have something to add before we to the audience?
What I can say here is overall, the security is not the IT's responsibility, not only the cyber security or the CISO who's on the organization. It's every individual or employee in the organization, even the customers. If you have customers, they are responsible to secure their data and information that they have. They shouldn't share it with anyone because basically within your organization, you gave the key to everyone. If he's not sure or if he does not know how to use the credentials that he have, he'll be exposing the organization to us.
Yeah, just one thing that I don't know how much it was covered in former Majlis, but I think one of the things that's most important, especially for IT leaders, is anytime beginning, during, or after these types of incidents is communication to the organization. I think that sometimes it's ignored because if you're hit with ransomware, you're in an oh no situation. But consistent, clear messaging of what happened, where we are, how much has progressed, where we are in recovery. This is a critical thing that we need to keep in mind as part of the playbooks. But it's really a really important thing to ensure that there's clear understanding, there's no doubts and no rumors and anything like that, and that there's clear knowledge that IT is actioning, things are happening, we're making progress, and there will be a result. So just as an aside.
And keep calm. Hopefully, yeah. Okay, so any questions from the audience? Still clear?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you spoke about recovery in terms of backup and business continuity, but what about making sure that this doesn't happen again? What are your recommendations in that regard? Is it just recovering and making sure that my backup is available and my business can continue operations? Is that enough? What about further investigations like forensics, like compromise assessments? Because we know that sometimes the threat actor stays within the network. They stay idle, they stay for a long time, they're quite patient. So what are your recommendations in that regard? Thank you.
See, after facing any such incidents, first of all, we need to notify the concerned or authorized parties within the country of the incident. So after recovering, we need to perform the forensics and identify the root cause, and we need to know what is the lesson learned from this incident, how we can enhance our as you said, how we can enhance our playbook, how we can enhance our incident response, how can upgrade or update our disaster recovery setup to ensure that it does not happen again, and not such like, let's say, Trojans or attacks we don't face them again.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I completely agree. Conducting a post-mortem or a post-incident review is critical as a part of any incident. But of course, in case of ransomware, identifying, like you said, the root cause, where did this come from? Are we being targeted, or is this random? These things you need to understand to learn to address. And of course, what was the root cause? What was the vulnerability that was exploited for them to be able to execute that ransomware? You need to find that and plug it, of course.
Yeah. So I think, yes. Can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Mohammed Ismail. To prepare and to prepare yourself to handle and recover the ransomware. I'm sure that your team need to be prepared well. So what do you think is the most practical way to train your team to handle these kind of incidents? I assume that tabletop scenarios will be a stressless way to handle this, but it's not practical. They don't feel the pressure of handling ransomware incidents. So what do you think is the most practical way to handle this, to practice and train?
How can I see? Basically, what you can do is, as I said, this is a collaborative effort, recovering from such incidents and preparing to the incident response plan. It's not a single person who can handle it. It's you need to brainstorm with considering the IT team and the information security team within the organization to list all the systems and agree on the action plan or how you're going to address and recover each system in case you came across ransomware attack or any type of attacks. So basically it's an agreement. We need to sit, brainstorm, agree on an action plan, and just follow it. Get it approved and follow it.
Do you think like simulations of these kind of attacks will help your organization or your team to prepare for it?
Of course, if you can afford it, this is the ideal scenario, you can say.
Yeah.
You need to allocate the resources, you need to allocate the time, you need to allocate prepare the setup.
And the budget is super expensive.
Yes.
Yeah, for something that probably you can do 60 to 70% of it in-house.
Correct.
Yourself.
Yeah,
you need a little bit of research, and you will find the tools, you'll find the scenarios, sit down, so you can reduce that. I don't know about cyber ranges. This like a cyber range is called it's like an environment, not real environment, where you will test the capabilities of your IT staff or security staff of how to respond, how to detect. But again, you need to balance this with your budgets. And you can buy a sophisticated solution. I think I'd invest in that.
Especially if you're considering if you have a disaster recovery side, plus you have a cloud. Just imagine the amount of effort and time required to.
But I agree with you that tabletop exercises is not going to have the level of stress that that a real incident would have. But I think walking through tabletop exercises on a regular basis, it's like practice. It's like football. You're in a practice. You're going through the motions. You're not in a game situation, but you're working on your form. You're so that hopefully once if an incident happens, you've trained for it. You know what to do. The stress level is not as high as it would be otherwise, and you can respond as well as you can.
Yep. Yes. At the back.
Hi, my name is Arshian. I'm working as a security engineer with Betelco. My question is to Tom. You touched upon a point where you mentioned that a vendor or a supplier could be compromised and the supplier could be handling your data. How do we reduce the response time? Because there are scenarios where by the time the vendor has assessed the damage on their infrastructure, there could be a possibility that your data is already exposed. How can we reduce that response time?
Yeah, I guess I would say it has to come from starting at procurement. So when you're engaging with a partner or a vendor, there needs to be certain things in the contract that ensure the appropriate level of security, that ensure that they have the right disaster recovery plans in place. You can ask them if they have a ransomware incident attack plan. I think that's really the best you can do, depending on how much power. I mean, if you're dealing with a smaller vendor as Betelco, you probably are able to really lean on them and say, listen, we can't do business with you unless you have X, Y, Z. it's a difficult situation. I mean, this is definitely a challenge, is dealing with an incident outside of your responsibility that impacts you in a significant way. But it's something that has to be considered all the way from the beginning of the engagement. And if it's already an existing vendor, go back to them and say, what are you guys doing and how are you doing it? And yeah, I'm not, that's not a great answer, I know, but.
Yeah. And it's actually, when you mentioned it earlier, it was like started an alarm in my head.
Yeah.
About how, and you said you're you're a family business. Your financial auditor has to be very secure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, if he's attacked and your data is leaked, then it's a big thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's their own company that's auditing them.
No,
Kano
no,
is
no,
huge.
No.
Thank you very much, guys. Recovery from ransomware, we depend a lot on backups, and this is something that you already emphasized here. So we know that backups usually come in different shapes and forms, whether it was tape backups, whether it was offline backups, whether it was backups in DR, whether it was backups in other facilities, whether it was backups of backups. So many technologies are there. So I'm just curious to know what type of recommendation do you have for the best approach in tackling backup in organizations, specifically for protection against ransomware? Yeah.
So I can maybe give a little bit. So as I said, before I joined Kanu, I was with Dell for 5 years, and Dell obviously sells a lot of backup solutions. The idea of having some type of immutable backup, I think, if you really, really need to secure yourself and ensure that you can recover from an attack, having a backup that cannot be changed once it's on the disk is critical. So like I said, we're using that a similar technology in the cloud right now. And I think for me, I'm comfortable with that, is knowing that a copy. So like I said, we have a disk-based backup on-prem. We have a second disk-based backup in a DR, and then we have a third immutable backup in the cloud. That's
More
that's
than
my
enough,
opinion.
I think. Yeah.
As you know, that backup technologies are they are advancing. The security is enhancing. They are enhancing the security of the backup itself. Today, you have solutions, backup solutions, where part of the backup there is threat monitoring. It monitors this, not only the size of the file, even the processing, the way it behaves in the platform. So what you can do is don't rely on just settle on a specific backup solution or a specific technology to protect your environment. Keep on exploring. Keep on following up with your partners. Just to find a proper solution for whatever threats or that come up to you in your mind.
I think this kind of a small caveat. Going for the best and the top, for example, if you go to Gartner top quadrant and whatever, make sure you buy something that you can manage. This is very important. Yeah, many situations you see you buy something very big, it's the top of the range, and it has all the bells and whistles and everything. But then you are challenged of how to configure that.
Yeah, but continuous monitoring and enhancement of your security posture is very important. So you need to have, you need to be dedicate some time of your day or your time to keep on exploring the available options to enhance your security posture in any specific area.
Exactly. Thank you. Any more questions? No? Okay. Oh, Smile.
The term mutable, and there's a lot
Immutable,
of immutable and a lot of buzzwords like golden copy, and I'm assuming that many of us don't know what that means. So I would love to hear from you the definition of those terms.
So I don't know what the official definition is, but to me, immutable immutable backup is when it's placed on the disk, it cannot be changed. So, like I said, when an attacker comes in and they try to target your backups, they're going to try to encrypt those on the backup disks themselves. But if it's an immutable copy, it cannot be changed by anything. So once it's put in that place, then there's kind of like a firewall between that destination and everything else, and nothing can get through to not even internally.
Yeah, I think I've heard about some of these solutions that you have a key and the vendor or someone else has the key for making changes to that disk. And again, if your vendor is not available, then you're out of business. Yeah. And I like the idea of having security built into the solution that you're getting. Like what Fadl has mentioned, that there is like monitoring, security monitoring of the files within the backup solution.
I think I've seen a lot of vendors. There's come a long way because this is a real problem for a lot of people.
Yes.
There's a lot of new technologies in that space.
Yeah. Right. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much. We'll stay around, have some snacks, have some tea and coffee. And thank you very much for attending the third Majlis. See you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.